In the mid-2000s, snooker was in serious trouble. Tournaments were disappearing, prize money was shrinking, the sport had no sponsors after the axing of tobacco sponsorship, and the calendar looked emptier every single season. There was a genuine fear that snooker, once one of the BBC's flagship sports, was sliding slowly into irrelevance. And then one man walked in and said something very simple: "I can fix this." That man was Barry Hearn. Today, Barry Hearn is one of the most divisive figures in snooker. Some credit him with saving the sport, others believe he is only interested in the money. But love him or hate him, one thing is undeniable: modern professional snooker exists because of Barry Hearn. To understand Barry Hearn's impact, you have to understand just how fragile snooker had become. By the late 2000s, ranking events were disappearing, prize money was declining, players outside the top 16 were struggling to survive, and sponsorship was inconsistent. Snooker relied on tradition, television slots and nostalgia, but tradition doesn't pay bills and nostalgia doesn't fund tours. The sport needed structure, investment and above all, the belief it was still relevant. Barry Hearn wasn't a snooker romantic despite his professed love for the game. He was a sports promoter, someone who understood leverage, scale and negotiation, someone who knew how to build value before selling it. He didn't see snooker as a dying sport, he saw it as an undervalued product. And another undervalued product is my videos. Just 21.6% of you who have watched my videos in the past 28 days have been subscribed. So if you love snooker and like snooker content that you won't see on TV, hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. When Barry Hearn took control of world snooker in 2010, it wasn't a safe bet. The sport wasn't booming, it wasn't fashionable, and it wasn't guaranteed to survive. But Hearn made a promise. He would increase tournaments, increase prize money, and take snooker global, and if it failed, the responsibility would be his. One of Hearn's earliest changes was simple but radical, and that was more tournaments. At a time when organisers were pulling out, Barry Hearn did the opposite. He flooded the calendar. This immediately created more earning opportunities, more ranking movement, and a reason for players outside the elite to keep going. Snooker stopped being a closed shop and started to feel like a real tour again. This is one of the most important and least understood parts of Barry Hearn's strategy. The Players Tour Championship events, or PTCs, were not designed to be glamorous. They were low cost, often behind closed doors, and sometimes criticised for prize money and presentation. But that was the point. Barry Hearn used the PTCs to manufacture demand. By putting large numbers of ranking events on the calendar himself, he proved something to promoters and broadcasters. Snooker players would turn up, fans would watch, and the product still worked. Once that demand existed, Hearn could then go to independent organisers and say, well, if you want a slot on this tour, it's going to cost you. In effect, Barry Hearn used his own events as leverage, establishing value where none existed before, and gradually replaced them with higher paying tournaments run by external organisers. The PTCs weren't the end goal, they were the pressure point, and when they had served their purpose, they disappeared, having done exactly what they were meant to do. With a stable calendar in place, the next step was expansion. Barry Hearn understood that snooker's future couldn't survive in the UK alone. Under his leadership, the sport has pushed aggressively into China, continental Europe, and new international markets. China in particular has transformed snooker over the past 15 years, not just financially, but culturally. It's produced players, sponsors, audiences, and long-term security. The results of this strategy were impossible to ignore. Prize money has increased steadily and deliberately. World Championship winners began earning figures that reflected a major professional sport, and more importantly, prize money spread deeper into the tour. For many players, Barry Hearn didn't just improve their careers, he saved them. Barry Hearn didn't run snooker like a traditional governing body, he ran it like a business. That meant clear branding, strong narratives, and aggressive promotion. Some fans did dislike the shift, others did embrace it, but it worked. Snooker became louder, faster, and commercially sharper because it had to. Barry Hearn's era has not been without controversy. Critics point to over-commercialisation, too many events, player burnout and loss of tradition, and those criticisms aren't wrong, but let's be real for a minute. Without change, there may not have been a sport left to criticise. Speak to players who lived through the transition and a pattern emerges. They may disagree with decisions, they may argue about formats and scheduling, but very few will deny this. Barry Hearn made snooker financially viable again. He turned hope into careers. But did he save snooker? Well, that depends on what you mean by saving. If saving means freezing snooker in time, then no, but if saving means stopping decline, creating opportunity, and building sustainability, then the answer is simple. Yes, Barry Hearn saved snooker. Barry Hearn's legacy isn't found in trophies or centuries, it's found in full calendars, global tours, and professional livelihoods. He didn't make snooker comfortable, he made it survive. My own criticisms of Barry Hearn is that maybe, just maybe, now that there is a bit more money and demand around, he could invest a little more into the grassroots of the sport, especially in the UK and Europe. But for Barry, money talks, and although I don't like that mindset, it has saved my favourite sport. You don't have to like Barry Hearn, you don't have to agree with his methods, but if you're watching professional snooker today, with global tours, serious prize money, and full calendars, you're watching a sport that exists because one man was willing to take control, take risks, and take criticism. Barry Hearn didn't change snooker, he saved it.